Fantasy, art history with Abelard and Joe.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody would say this, but I think that it is. I think it's goth.
You think the movie Fight Club is goth.
I think that Fight Club is goth.
I don't agree with you, Abelard. I'm sorry.
Yeah. A lot of
I
people aren't ready to see this, but Fight Club is about a guy getting sort of entranced by this like powerful but tormented like Superman who like lets loose his deepest, basest desires so that he can fall in love with Helena Bonham Carter. And if that's not goth, I don't know what is.
that's the no, there's being goth is about like it's about knowing about death and being sad in the suburbs. It's not about hitting men.
Well, Edward Norton starts out being sad in the suburbs.
Uh, do you, I mean, they do live in a drafty, mysterious old house, so there is that.
Yeah.
But everyone is just kind of wearing like regular outfits. So
See,
I
yeah.
feel like that really is skipping the most important part of being goth, which is that you've got some like sweet fits.
What do you think they would have to do in Fight Club instead of bare knuckle boxing for it to be goth? Assume they were all wearing goth outfits.
Poetry,
Poetry Club.
poetry club, open night, poetry club, reading fight. No one can know that you were there saying the poetry because it turns out actually you have a serious job as the you're in the Secret Service protecting the president, and if
Yeah.
everyone else knew that you were a secret poet, they wouldn't take you seriously anymore, and they would fire you from your job, and you would lose your security clearance. But the poetry burns in your soul
Yeah.
so hard that you have to hide in a dark basement with the other goths, and you have to let it out.
Yeah, you have to find a guy. I guess his name probably wouldn't be Tyler Durden.
It would be some other name. It would be like Ambrosia Ravenclaw, and he would be almost as good a poet as you and really respected in the community. And then
Wait,
uh,
Ambrosia isn't a better, but that's the whole point of Tyler Durden. Ambrosia would have to be the best poet ever.
this is a new, different movie. This isn't Fight Club anymore. This is something completely new and innovative, and it's going to be huge.
Okay. Well, before we finish figuring out the script of the new movie,
Poetry Club. That doesn't.
Poetry Club,
That just sounds. We need a better title though.
Poetry Club,
Because Fight Club does sound exciting.
Poetry
But
Club,
po-
Poetry,
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 poetry rampage.
Slam.
No, but already that's something different.
Well,
Well,
okay. Sorry, I'll bring it back around. Today, Joe, we're talking about the art of vampire, the masquerade. Not only a vampire, a real masquerade.
what?
Yeah,
Wait, are the vampires pretending to be some other different kind of creature?
yeah, they're pretending. Well, hmm. So I never actually played this one. I guess it's time to make a clean breast of it. Did you?
Oh, well, in a way, I have the an equal and oppositely embarrassing confession to make, which is I have, but it was a long time ago.
Did you masquerade as anything?
I Here's the thing. I Some of my friends took me to a weird warehouse somewhere in Chicago, and I pretended to be a vampire there for possibly about 2 hours.
Wait, it was a
Wait,
what?
uh, yeah, I decided I wasn't gonna talk. Uh,
Yeah. Well, we don't have to get into it. What kind of vampire were you, though?
I was I was a young and inexperienced vampire, but it turns out I'm really good at paper rock scissors, which was how we were doing all of the mind control trials. Get to look at me, but I'm great at it. So I had a great time. No one was able to mind control me or steal my blood or anything the whole night.
Yeah. Here's the thing
Anyway,
about rock, paper, scissors. I can only do paper
yeah,
or rock.
yeah, you can't do. Yeah, but people don't expect it when you kind of you look into their eyes
Yeah.
while they're doing it,
Yeah.
and you think like, I know which one you're gonna pull. I know which one you're gonna do. But tonight, I'm a vampire. Yeah, that's what it's like. It's all confidence. It's like in Fight Club.
Yeah, it's just like Fight Club in a
It's
way.
just like Fight Club.
Well, to get started, so Vampire the Masquerade, we were kind of talking about like what was going on with vampires in popular culture. And we were going to talk about, first of all, what about, the greatest piece of vampire media, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula,
I agree with you 100%.
which I think that was 1992. First edition of Vampire the Masquerade came out 1991. But Interview with the Vampire, which is like the seminal people are thinking about tragic, sexy vampires,
Mhm.
that's 1976. So there
That's
was
so
time for this and
early.
that was like a bestseller. So that was like percolating for a long time.
That's crazy. I had no idea that came out. It doesn't. It feels like an '80s sort of
It
book.
extremely does.
But that's how things get popular. Someone's got an innovative vision of the future,
Yeah.
and then everyone's like, "Well, I never thought of vampires like this before," and then suddenly it's all over the place. And I think the modern sad, cool vampire is here. This is just part of the culture now.
Yeah.
And like all parts of culture, somebody wrote it RPG. So
Yes.
you too.
So we're going to show you what the cover looks like. And if you don't know, just stop the video. Stop and think about what the cover looks like. Ready? Unpause. That's what the cover looks like.
Hooray!
You thought it was going to be a painting or a drawing. You thought there was going to be a vampire on it, but you're wrong.
No. This is so different from all of the other RPG art that we've looked at so far. And I think this is still something that, like, you'll see certain RPG books that are still kind of, I don't know, like plowing this field design wise. I think that it just must have looked totally different from everything else on the shelf at the time.
Yes, especially imagine role-playing games still being like a niche hobby and being confined to game stores, that you would go in and see this. Imagine also that you're either 14 years old or you're an adult who plays games designed for 14-year-olds. Imagine the sense of legitimacy something like this would have to you.
Yeah, this is real objects in the real world. There's no elves,
Yeah.
there's no dragons, no dwarves. This is a real rose, and it's very romantic.
It looks wet and it's on some marble. It is very romantic, but it's also so sad.
It's so it's so sad.
And it sounds like we're kind of taking the piss here. And this is a silly and corny illustration, but I think part of what makes all of this work so good is that it's not afraid to be 100% what it is.
hmm I think that's the key to your better sort of vampire related media also. You can't like do vampires by half.
Yeah,
It's there's no you've already gone so far down the path of like huge gestures and crazy clothing and like dramatic lives, and you have to go all the way. You can't
yeah.
be delicate about this, and this is not delicate. This is like here's what you're getting in this book. It's gonna be like laying a rose on the grave of your beloved on a rainy day. And are you here for it? Because this is what it is.
This is what you're going to get.
What do you think about the decision here to print the title in an almost illegible gray shade?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, we all have to make choices.
Yeah.
It is not easy, especially because the marble is modeled. It does not make it easy. But
Yeah.
we're not here. Speaking of sacrifices for the sake of legibility, could you pull up our next photo?
Oh, yes, I'll go do it.
So this is a quick scan of one of the pages of this book. And this book is like in some ways, designed as a document. So we've got, thanks, Joe. So we've got little decorative curly cues that look like wrought iron fence. there are some there are some pages that have like watermarks in the background, but in this, there are these like diegetic, if that's you can use that word for stuff that's kind of nonfiction or creative nonfiction or something.
Mhm.
Or I guess it's a made up, it's just pure world building. But so people are leaving handwritten quote unquote notes that are left by sort of vampire clerks or scholars or whatever. Um, and there's an effect put on them, like they're literally little pieces of paper stuck into the text that you're reading. So it's really committed to sucking you into this world, as it were, vampires. And the other thing about it is this stuff is not relevant for play, right? If you are have contact with like modern kind of OSR game design, the idea is everything in the book needs to be useful. And I think that's generally good for what they're trying to do. But this book is making all these gestures just to have a sort of erratic, powerful experience of just reading the book by yourself.
Yeah, it's unlike the standard model of fantasy, where we all kind of know what we're getting into, elves and dwarves, whatever. This is, and I think this is why it's interesting to talk about this rather than, before now we've been talking about the work of individual artists rather than one whole game book as a sort of unit. They're really creating a more or less new world for you to play in, and they have to set the mood. It's really important to do that part because no one's going to necessarily be on the same page when they sit down at the table.
Yeah. And this game does seem to have some interest in having a cohesive mood. If you can have a cohesive mood, then your game about sad vampires is going to be stronger.
Right, you were saying earlier, and I thought this was very interesting with that basic regular style D&D is it has room for a lot more sort of you can play it silly, you can play it serious,
Yeah.
it can bounce around quite easily
And
between
different
those things.
players can come in with different expectations. Some guys can say, like, my guy's name is Anacambrius, and he's the last good elf of a race of bad elves. And another guy can say, my guy's name is Daffodil O'Toole, and he's working on his folk music. And those can just kind of, we've all agreed that they can kind of coexist.
Mm.
But in this vampire game, it seems like probably real games had a lot of this same problem where some guys were Bela Lugosi and some guys were Robert Pattinson. But I think they're trying to create something a little more cohesive here.
Yeah, and really carefully designing your text, having this nice border that goes all the way around the book and everything. This is doing really good work to kind of you sit down, you open up, you read it, you're like, here I am in the vampire world.
Yeah.
It's different. Things are different. Do you
One
want
thing about the vampire world, if you could bring up the next
Oh yes, I'll go
slide
get
real
it.
quick, Jen. Thanks, Jen.
Next time you have to do these though, it's hard work.
Yeah, I can tell. I can see you working hard over there.
Yeah, I'm worried I'll screw it up, you know?
One thing about the vampire world, it's the 90s, baby.
Yeah.
The information age.
This is so good. I'm glad we're looking at some art now that we can talk about the art.
Yeah.
Do you know the guy who made this?
Yeah, actually, let me do a few retrospective credits. So, since we're
Okay.
covering a few different artists, a lot of people to credit. The cover of the Rose on the Tombstone was Mark Pace was the photographer. The layout of those pages is Eileen E. Miles, not to be confused with the other Eileen Miles. And then this is Christopher Shy, who has done lots and lots of work in this sort of space of photo manipulation.
I think the use of a photograph here is so rad. I think it sets it apart from all of the like drawn art you might have seen in other RPGs at this time. It immediately sort of changes the I it changes your idea of what sort of world you're in and what is possible here. Like this is the real world.
Yeah,
There's a real photograph on the cover. This is a real guy.
real guy.
But it's not like it's still a drawn image. If you zoom in real close on this guy's nose, you can see just like little like hash marks that the artist added to put a shadow down there.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to cover that up at all. This is a clearly this is both a photo and clearly it's also been drawn on top of. And I think that sort of, I don't know, messiness of that is really fascinating. That's a definitely a decision that I see being made in a lot of the other art in this book. It's not in most of these pieces, they look a little rough and unfinished, and
Yeah.
not in a unplanned way. Like I don't think it's in a way where they were like, we need these all done in a week, and then we're just gonna throw them in. We don't care. I think this was part of the aesthetic that they were going for. That they thought, part of this idea of this vampire world is that it's not perfect and fancy. It's kind of weird, run down. The it'll make you a little uncomfortable maybe. I think like there's a discomfort in seeing a photograph that's been drawn on. It's like
Yeah.
a little weird, and that's part of what they're going for, and I think this image really captures that idea.
If we had like 4 hours to do this, we could really cover. There's such a breadth of styles in this book.
It's very fun. Someday if we ever have, we do like a special episode, we're just gonna page through the entire Vampire the
It's so
Masquerade
great.
manual. It's quite good.
It's a treat.
I don't know if the game is good, but the drawings are a lot of fun.
Um, the other thing that's going on in here is a little bit, again, of setting the expectations for the world in terms of just like what this character is like. He's got a face tattoo, he's got Matrix sunglasses, he's got a kind of corset top or like a lace-up something. He's
Yeah.
got like a chunky belt. You're going to be a cool guy who lives on the edge.
Yeah.
That's one of your options.
And he's not, although we can't see very much of the location he's in, he's not in a like castle.
Yeah.
That's like a regular window.
He
That's,
looks like he's in an apartment building.
yes. I love that. It's just a little like, you can kind of, I swear that the reflect, there's like a mirror behind him.
Yeah,
I think that shadow in there is the shadow of the photographer,
very possible.
which is cool.
Yeah.
Like it's so, you're in the real world. You are, watch
Yeah.
out, there's vampires. Oh no.
Yeah.
Should I grab the other image that
Yeah,
you want to look
exactly.
at? Yeah.
Speaking of it being the information age, let's check this one out. We don't need to spend as much time here, but I love this little man and his little computer. He's
Um,
on the desktop.
wow, you might have thought that vampires were from the olden times,
Yeah.
but you'll be wrong. Even the crazy little gremlin like grave guys, your Renfields, as it were, they're on the computer now.
They're on the
So
computer.
watch out.
And I think so this book is, I believe, the third edition or the revised edition, which is about like came out in 1998. So he's probably on Windows 95. He's probably chilling on Windows 95.
But you don't, even if you were a hacker, you'd have to use Windows 95. I'm assuming he's a hacker.
Well, if he's a hacker, he's probably using, I actually don't know. Would he be using like, was there a Linux available at that time?
Man, I don't know. If you're a hacker, make a comment. Tell us what he would have been doing
What
on
was
a
he
computer
hacking on?
this time.
What was
Is he
he
on like
doing
a?
on the computer? Is he
Was
doing his taxes right
he's
now?
on a BBS?
Is he on a BBS right now?
Yeah, the special vampire BBS. No, you have to have a special code to get in. Uh, here's some stuff I'll say about this compositionally, like from in art. As I just had to do a bunch of long, narrow pieces like this for similar reasons, which is that oftentimes in a book you'll have a certain amount of text that fits on a page, and you put the text in a sort of shape that's like this, and then you have an empty space next to it, but not enough text to go in there. So you're like, I don't know, put a picture in. It is not easy to figure out how to make a long, narrow drawing like this and show a scene and have it be interesting. This is it's just a weird shape to
Yeah.
have to fill up. And
Yeah.
wow, this is what a great job the artist did here.
There's such a progression of like his face looking ever so gently up, which points you to the skull, which points you further up. Like it's almost like a comic that reads bottom to top. And then
Yeah.
there are the books and then the weird pipes, like he's in a sewer or something.
Yeah, he's in a basement. Like the way that this tells you a little story about this guy, and it's full of wonderful little surprises. Like, oh yeah, this vampire, he's got the old tomes.
Yeah.
He's got the old, but he doesn't stop there. he's got a skull that's probably an old friend of his,
Yeah.
and he's on the computer.
Yeah.
Like I want to play in a game where we meet this guy.
Yes.
This is top level NPC that you want to have in your game, and the
Yes.
party members, they come down into the gloomy basement, and then he's sitting with back to the computer. He turns around, he's like, "Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I see you've come to the Athanasius
Yeah.
computer lab. What
Yes.
can I help you with?"
Was
That's
this
what
not
that's
a
what he would be like.
was this not a plot point in the original Blade that vampires were using the computer?
Man, I don't remember, but you know what? That was a great movie.
I want to see more vampires using the computer. I want to see vampires on DOS.
I believe that vampires are, out of all of the paranormal monsters, most likely to use computer. I
Well,
can't
here's
think of a one different kind of paranormal guy that would be more likely to be on the computer too much.
I'm thinking about it, and I think you're absolutely right. They already can't go out and touch grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here is an image that is the oh, and art for this is Vince Locke drew this amazing image.
Nice work, Vince.
Um, Next, let's see an image that's the opposite of using the computer.
Ooh,
Cover your eyes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so sexy.
Vampire the Masquerade is about being sexy sometimes. This was not the only sexy image.
Yeah, there were arguably some even sexier ones.
Yeah.
But, I think that you would not see this in a game book in our current time.
Yeah.
I don't,
Generally, you would want to be pretty cautious about putting this in a game book on our current.
even if it was a game about sexy vampires, you
Yeah.
would be like, wow, these vampires are so sexy. And then you'd have a picture of one, like, looking towards the viewer in a sort of smoldering way. You wouldn't have this straight up, like, yeah, the vampires, they make out all the time. It's like
Yes.
super hot.
They get mega horny.
Yeah.
They dress up like this and go nuts.
This is a beautiful drawing.
It is the individual pencil marks in this drawing are unbelievable. This is like every little piece of drawing, the hand, all of the lines of the hair, the little bit of fabric of the guy's robe and the way it pools around his elbows. The thing that really kills me for something that's like not super anatomically detailed, right, is mostly outline. The little calf muscle on the vampire lady's right leg is such a beautiful touch because it explains where all the like tension is and how she's holding her body like that. Like I think it's unbelievable how this is drawn and composed. And this art is from, the stone cold killer of beautiful drawings in popular genre entertainment. That's right. It's Rebecca Guay.
Well, we should do a bunch of her work soon.
Yeah, she can get a whole episode, but I think this is stunning.
I think I think that it's cool that what we're seeing here, it's different, although it's like a sexy lady who's not wearing pants. It's not a pinup,
Yeah.
which has this sort of, and I've seen a lot of pinup stuff, and I think you still see even in these times where people are more uncomfortable with things being straight up just for being sexy or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something about, like, well, this lady, she's standing here, she's wearing like not a lot of clothes, and she's kind of like looking at you or off into the distance like that. In a way, this is less weird than that because this is a portrait of two people interacting with each
Yeah.
other. There's not just someone artificially like being objectified for you to look at.
Yeah.
These are two vampires, or maybe one vampire and a regular dude,
Yeah.
and you could imagine yourself into this situation. I certainly would.
Yeah.
And I'd like to be the guy that's holding up the vampire lady.
I think everyone would want to be the guy.
Really?
Yeah. Well, that depends.
Because
So
she
it's
seems
more
kind
about
of dangerous. I don't know if that would be everyone's deal. I guess everyone is different.
I think that um talking about this kind of like is this are these which of these figures are subjects and which are objects, right? Which
Mhm.
becomes more fraught when we're doing this kind of like erotic illustration.
Yep.
Is pretty complicated and I think there truly isn't a single right answer here. But in this, the male character is an afterthought. Like you don't see his face.
Mhm.
He's like literally a physical prop for the female character.
And that, in a way, because he doesn't have any details, it's easier to imagine yourself into being in that position, I guess.
But so it's I it could you could say this is facelessness that makes it easier to insert yourself, but it's also facelessness that makes it like, oh, this is a prop for this person to display how great they are.
So this is only slightly related. I always hear that thing about how if you have a character in a comic or in a book where there's not a lot of physical details about it, that's so it's easier for the reader to identify with them. I don't think I believe that. That seems
Okay.
kind of crazy to me. I don't know if I have more to say about this right now, but like why wouldn't you be more likely to identify with a detailed real person than just kind of a cipher? Cipher is
Yeah.
just a cipher. I have lots of unique characteristics.
Yeah. You
So,
don't look very much like this guy who's getting made out with, but you share an enthusiasm for making out with this lady, and so it's easier to kind of project yourself onto.
hmm yeah, that part, yep, that's, you said it.
Yeah.
Yep. You were saying that this pose reminded you of the Klimt painting.
Yeah. Well, when I was looking at it, I was like, wait, is this just that Klimt painting, The Kiss? Is that where this composition's from? And it's actually very different,
Mhm.
in many different ways, but there are some echoes. So the quality of the upper figure cupping the lower figure's head with both hands is from The Kiss. The sort of general positioning is similar. And there is this sort of like interweaving of the dimensional and the flat here that I think is like similar to what's going on there. Obviously the concerns of that painting are really different. Um, and if anything, my if I were to take a wild guess, I would imagine that you would look at that as an example of how to fit a composition with two bodies into a an image with these dimensions.
Yes. You were also, didn't you say that the position of the like male and female figures is
Yes.
reversed?
Yes, they're reversed. So in the kiss, the
Yeah.
male figure is higher up.
Which is, I think that's really cool. I think that I have a feeling that, uh, either consciously or unconsciously, maybe this artist took a look at that painting and was like, what if what was it the other way around?
Yeah,
That would be pretty sweet.
that would be cool.
Yeah. I think the gesture of her hair flying and the way that that suggests supernatural powers uh, is really great. And it's
Yeah.
also a lot of times people do fancy hair in a sort of Alphonse Musha way where
Yeah.
it just kind of floats around. This is violent
Yeah.
floating hair. This is she like
She's
she
slamming her head into that guy's mouth so fast.
she leapt up there so powerfully and strongly that her hair is still like following the path that she went through to get there. It's great. Like
It's so
this
cool.
could look so still, but that sort of arc of like fiercely drawn too. I think the other thing that the character of the sort of penciled line work is doing is that like it doesn't look like someone kind of like calmly sat down and drew this and they kind of like were really careful. But this looks like someone who is like into it, drew it, which is what you really want to see when you're looking, or at least it's what I want to see when I'm looking at art that's got like trying to be sexy. Like I
Yeah.
want to know that I want to be able to tell that the artist was like, yeah,
Yeah, this
oh
is
gosh.
awesome.
Yeah, and now it's also like ties into the thing we were talking about how much of the art in this book looks somewhat unfinished. Like it's uncommon, I think, to have like penciled
Yeah.
drawings in a final sort of published book, but this is just straight up pencils. Like you can
Yeah.
see the kind of smears and the rough lines and everything.
Hmm.
They're finished pencils, but it's not, no one inked this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great piece of work.
Uh-oh, who's that? Who's coming in from
Oh,
the side there? Uh-oh, look out, everybody. Ah! Ah. Okay,
wow.
last one.
Wow. Oh, wow.
This is Brian LeBlanc. This rocks. I love it. Sorry to end on this note. The Rebecca Gray one is so good, but I think this has its own kind of propulsive energy.
I completely agree. I've never seen a pants that shiny
Yeah,
ever in my life.
yeah,
That's like, maybe Iggy Pop once wore pants this
It has
tight.
to imagine that Iggy Pop was an incredible inspiration to this guy.
Yeah, but wow, it's like they're made out of metal. It's incredible.
Yeah.
This is an incredible track.
It's so awesome.
This is why I love like fantasy RPG art because you just don't, they're not going to see stuff like this anywhere else. This level of nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's just great.
Yeah, I think like this is one of those things you put this in your book, it's an action shot, right? He's doing the thing where you run away from gunfire where the person is pointing at where you were and slowly sweeping their machine gun or whatever slightly toward you, right? So you can kind of outrun it by running really fast.
Yeah.
And
Look
there's
at the little points of light coming out of the wall.
yeah,
Oh no, he's not worried about the gunfire because he's a daring vampire,
yeah.
but the sunlight coming through the bullet holes. Oh, that's why he's
Oh,
running
is that how you
away.
read it? I thought
Yeah.
it was just I thought those were just the lines of the shooting bullets, but it could be maybe it is
I
sunlight
think
beaming
it's
from the other
sunlight
direction.
coming from through the holes in the wall of his, secret crypt.
Yeah.
But, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but also I think this is the sort of image that encourages you, the viewer, to tell a story,
Yeah.
which is what you want from the art in your RPG book.
Yeah. It's there is a kind of there is a slight almost unavoidable clunkiness to this in that the big thing that he's diving behind, which you have to put up there to explain where he's going and why he's going this way so fast, it does sit pretty uneasily in the rest of this composition.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But on the other
But
hand,
that's not where you're supposed to be
the
looking. There's
the
one place you're supposed to be looking.
there you it's beautiful round butt.
I'm talking about his beautiful red, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's incredible.
get a look at that.
Wow. Did
Speaking of
you
people
notice
being into the thing they're depicting,
did you notice that it kind of doesn't appear in the shadow? It's only in real life.
this was actually my suspicion is that the
Do
I
you
feel
think
like
it
I'm
was a
doing
late
like
addition?
I feel like I'm doing like bizarre forensics here, and there's nothing less necessary than what I'm about to say. But I do think that the line of his upper thigh, because it's contiguous, it makes me think that originally it was just that. And he went back and was like, this guy isn't caked up nearly enough. And then he added it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he forgot. And it's easy to forget to like follow through to your background.
There is so much, like the light and shadow stuff in this is genuinely stunning. There's really
Yeah.
good figure stuff. The way that his body is twisting and you can see that in his torso is like gorgeous.
Yeah, the way that his arm covers up his face, he's doing the sort of traditional
Oh
gesture.
my God, you're right.
But
Wow.
he doesn't have a cloak because if he had a cloak on, you
Yeah,
couldn't see how goddamn
yeah.
jacked he was.
These machine gun guys woke him up before he got a chance to put his cloak on.
But this
Right
is
when he
like
was changing.
in the modern era. No more cloaks for these
Yeah.
vampires. No, just a six pack and a tight ass and like the shiniest pants that have ever been worn. I mean, he looks cool. I don't know if I would want to play as this guy because like I don't. It seems kind of uncomfortable.
Be
He's
a
so
hard lark. Eat the cold.
he's so greasy.
Yeah.
This you can tell how greasy he is looking at him.
Yeah.
That's powerful. If you, as an artist, if you can draw something that makes people, like decades later, be like, "God, this is a weird, greasy dude." I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. You're reaching across time to make us, be like, but yet still sort of attractive. How does that work?
I bet he posted on the vampire BBS and it said best kind of oil for vampires.
Vampire Bill recommendations.
Hi.
Hi. Do you think he had like a sig under his post? And it was like a quote.
Yeah.
Do you think it just said the Lugosi's dead?
Joe,
Yeah.
the very first sentence in this book, the very first three words in this book, no fooling, in the Vampire the Masquerade rulebook are
Yeah.
Bella Lugosi's dead.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yep. Can't argue with that.
I believe in the fiction that is being written by Dracula.
Dude,
This book is touching. This is so awesome.
damn it.
Yeah, commitment, baby.
Yep, yeah, you can't no half measures. You can't half ass this. You have to have a full round beautiful ass like the incredible man here. That's what
Yeah,
it is to be goth. And I love it. What a beautiful world. What a beautiful vampire world.
it is a beautiful vampire world.
Yeah.
And thanks for spending a few minutes of it with us, Abelard and Joe.
Yeah, we'll see you around next time. Watch out. It's watch
Yeah.
out for them vampires.
Okay.
They're still out there
Ugh.
out in the big city.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are still playing this game. You never know.
Well, until next time,
Keep
keep
on.
on dreaming. We said it at the same time. We said we weren't going to. Well, sorry, everybody. We tried.